Robinson dashes for the plate. It's close, and umpire Summers calls him safe on the daring maneuver. But Yogi Berra doesn't think so. And the fans will never forget the sight of Jackie Robinson tearing for the plate on his daring steal.
That is the most famous straight steal of home in baseball history. Jackie Robinson, Game 1 of the 1955 World Series. But we are not here to determine if Jackie was safe or out. This is crafting the call, and our aim today is to help play-by-play announcers and fans make sure that they do not miss one of the rarest and most exciting plays in baseball. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Suchon.
And I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. And Josh, I really like that term. It truly is a daring maneuver.
Yeah, that's very rare. I mean, it's not just daring because you might be out. It's daring because you might die.
There are all sorts of, we talk about unwritten rules in baseball. Well, if there's any potential situation where the batter might swing the bat, do not go. Hopefully the batter understands that you're coming so he doesn't swing the bat. There's so much that can go wrong.
Yeah, there's so much that can go wrong for your health. There's so much that can go wrong for your team. There's so much that can also go right as well. And these are plays that, again, are so rare. Put it this way, Jesse. This is my 11th year calling Albuquerque Isotopes baseball. And I've had a few first and third where there's a steal of home. But in terms of a straight steal of home, I have had 0 attempts in 11 years. I'm always trying to be ready for it. I love them. I try to manifest one into happening, but I've never even had someone attempt one in any of my games.
You and me both. I will look at the runner at third base and I'll think, he's fast. There's a lefty on the mound, so the back is turned toward the runner. Maybe. And I've never seen it. But that's the thing about it is it can erupt at any time, and that is the challenge for the broadcaster. The baseball broadcaster largely is calling a casual, relaxed, enjoyable game. But when a steal of home happens, you better be ready to go 0 to 60.
And a lot of times when there is a straight steal of home, it's because people are not paying attention. Not just the announcers, not just the fans, but the pitcher, the catcher, infielders. There's a number of people who may not be paying attention. And so we're going to see a number of instances where you've got someone who's really fast, but also you've got people who just lose their concentration and the runner at third base takes advantage of it.
What I'd like to do with you is I'd like to break down what makes a good call, where a broadcaster can go wrong. So as we try to figure out what are the best ways to call a steal of home, and also you and I having fun, we can still say, was the runner safe or out?
All right, so let's get into a very famous play from 2012. Truly one of the most unique moments in baseball history. And also I love this because there's a couple of legends who were broadcasting the game. And you can tell that even some of the Mount Rushmore broadcasters trying to figure out what just happened and how do I describe this?
When it's up there, you don't want to take the chance on taking it.
Here comes Cabrera, and he scores! He didn't even catch the ball, and Gibson called him out. And here comes Venable. He scores. What in the world is Gibson? He called Cabrera out on the ball that went all the way to the screen. That is one of the most abominable calls I've ever seen. With a game on the line, Cabrera shocks the entire ball yard by stealing home. The throw goes all the way to the screen. Gibson calls Cabrera out. Look at this. This is incredible. He calls him out. Look at this. Called him out. What in the world is he seeing? Now he said, oh, I guess he's safe. The ball's back there. And then Venable alertly comes in to score the second run. That was great base running by Venable. The Padres steal 2 runs and take the lead.
Well, the deuces are really wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, and 2 on at second and third. And look at here. He's going to be safe after the plate umpire missed. Another run will score. One moment, Greg Carlson called him out at the plate, but when the ball got away, he then reversed to safe, and another run scored. And so the Padres have turned it around. Kenley head down, scraping, and here comes Cabrera, and the throw goes all the way to the backstop. Cabrera saying, how can I be called out? And then Greg said, no, you're right. And then following comes Venable.
Okay, so that was Vin Scully the second, and the first was Dick Enberg on Padres TV, Jesse, where you have a case of Kenley Jansen's not paying attention, A.J. Ellis initially not paying attention, and the umpire also with this emphatic out. Oh, wait, the ball's behind home type of call. A lot to digest here, Jesse.
This is a devastating trap for a broadcaster because an out ends the game and wins it for the Dodgers. And the Dodgers are one strike away. So you as the broadcaster, you are so locked into Kenley Jansen in this at-bat looking to close out the game. And then we've got a steal of home attempt. So now you're surprised by this. How could he go? There's 2 strikes. You should never go with 2 strikes. But Jansen is turning his back. So now we've got a chance. Here comes the throw home. You see with your eyes that the ball has gotten away. But you also see the call of out, which would end the game and a Dodgers win. So Dick Enberg, I would argue, understandably falls into the trap of getting hung up on the umpire's call. When in fact, the real story is we've got a live ball at the backstop. The tying run is scored and the go-ahead run is streaking for home plate. And this is a case where a broadcaster who trains themselves on watching the umpire, making the call with the umpire, you have to ignore the umpire in this situation and trust your eyes. The ball is back there and the tying and the go-ahead runs are scoring. This is tricky. Enberg gets caught up on the umpire and Vin Scully gets caught behind trying to catch up with all the action.
And Greg Gibson is the umpire, and Vin at one point misses the name. I think he calls him Greg Carlson as well. And then he goes back to just the first name. Yeah. I mean, also this is July 4th. This is post-game fireworks are about to erupt, right? Like this is a huge crowd. They're all on their feet. There's all of this drama. And then all of a sudden chaos ensues. And I think that you described it really well, Jesse, in that what do you trust? Your eyes, the umpire, where there's just a lot going on here. And then what do you do next? And I think that Vin does a really good job of recovering about the second run that's coming home. And I think that Dick Enberg, I think you're right, he gets too hung up on what was the umpire thinking. Well, he made a mistake and then he corrected himself right afterwards. And now here comes a second run. And meanwhile, yeah, the story is the Padres have the lead. Instead of losing the game, they have the lead now.
It strikes me as sports talk fodder in that depending on which fan you are, you can call in after the game to say, great base running, which Enberg belatedly gets to. This is fantastic, aggressive heads-up base running. Or it's heads-down defense. Or it's an umpire making an abominably, to steal Enberg's word, poor call. So there's 3 different things happening concurrently in front of a massive crowd in the 9th inning with 2 strikes and 2 outs. So you've got everything on the line. And that's why I love that we're starting here. And we can say, you've got this play in front of you as a broadcaster. What should you do? Where should your eyes go? Where should your brain go? And where should both of those lead your mouth?
And I think we've talked about this in the past, Jesse. Where's the ball and who's on the bases and what are they doing? Like that's the most fundamental thing of any sport, especially baseball. Where's the ball? Who are the base runners? What are they doing? And I think that's what it comes back to. I also think, Jesse, that this is an example of something that's not going to happen nowadays because of the pitch timer. Before the pitch timer, you would see pitchers like Kenley Jansen, and he was probably one of the most notorious for taking forever between pitches. Now you can't do that. You don't have time to kick around the mound and look around and do all of these things because that clock is ticking. Now when you get the ball back, you know you only have 18 seconds. You better be ready and not kick around the dirt.
Boy, that's such a good observation about how baseball, with the pitch clock keeping things going at a nice clip, what it takes away. And that is that sudden eruption of excitement.
So when it comes to the straight steal of home, I've got a couple of numbers here that I'm going to look at my cheat sheet here, Jesse. Ty Cobb, according to research, Ty Cobb stole at least 32 bases of home in his career. Something that it might have been as many as 54 times he stole home. But of course, back then we didn't keep detailed statistics the way that we do now. Rod Carew stole home, a straight steal of home, 17 times, including 7 in one season. Jackie Robinson stole home 19 times in his career. Even Babe Ruth stole home 8 times in his career. So it's something that used to happen on a somewhat regular basis, even into the 70s. Once we got into the 80s, it became extremely rare. And we're going to watch a number in a row here, Jesse, where it is a straight steal of home, and it's a couple of different ways in which it occurs.
Before we get into that, I do think it's worth saying the difference between the straight steal of home and then stealing home. I would call it the Little League double steal. Runner at first, runner at third, runner from first breaks for second, draws the throw, runner from third scores. If you know the body shape of Alejandro Kirk, the catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, he stole home with the Lansing Lugnuts in that same spot. Runner from first broke, and here comes Kirk stampeding in from third base to steal home. It was great. We enjoyed it. We had a good time. But it's that straight steal of home that is one of the most exciting plays in baseball.
Lavelle at the belt. Checks. Brummer stealing home. He is safe, and the Cardinals win. Brummer stole home. The dugout comes out, and they congratulate him. You wouldn't believe it.
2 out.
That was the immortal Mike Shannon who was on the call for that one. And I'm going to rewind it here, Jesse, as you talk about a left-handed pitcher, Gary Lavelle. I love those old Giants uniforms. And a big leg kick. I'm actually going to watch this again.
Wow. 2 down. Sacks jammed. Lavelle at the belt. Checks. Brummer stealing home. He is safe, and the Cardinals win. Brummer stole home. The dugout comes out, and they congratulate him.
One of the most famous stolen homes of all time. 40 years ago, Cardinal fans still talk about this one, Jesse.
This is a great call because it's using efficiency in words. He's stealing home. He's safe. The Cardinals win. The bases are loaded. So you know the game-winning run is 90 feet away. The pitcher's concentration is on the batter, but it's a lefty, so the back is turned. And I think that Mike Shannon crushes this call.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And this is another example of why you don't see too many steals of home, straight steals of home anymore, because number one, pitchers don't do big leg kicks the way they used to. There's also very few that even work from the windup these days. There's a lot of pitchers who exclusively work from the stretch. They'll do a slide step home even when there's a runner at third base. And so you rarely even get the opportunity. But baseball in the 80s, you had pitchers working from the windup. You had pitchers with huge leg kicks. And that gave you the opportunity, especially, Jesse, when there is a left-hander and, like you said, his back is turned.
I think that Mike, with his reaction to this, because as a TV viewer, I don't realize that there's a runner who's going to try to steal home until he arrives, right? That's the challenge for us as the audience. With TV, with a broadcaster, you generally rely on the picture to help you tell the story and to tell the majority of the story. But the camera doesn't show that runner leading away from third. How often do we see the camera shot showing the runner at first base and the pitcher watching them and working out of the stretch? They never reverse it. So we do have to have that change in voice just to let us know that something's happening.
The other part that makes this really rare, which is really a testament to how well Mike Shannon calls this, is that this guy who steals home, this is Glenn Brummer. He is a third string catcher for the Cardinals. He had 1 career stolen base at the time. It's not like this is Vince Coleman or Ozzie Smith where you are on high alert in case of a wild pitch or something like that. This is the third string catcher who has a walk-off or a steal-off to win a game at Busch Stadium.
Josh, we're peaking early. What's next?
Wouldn't believe it.
2 out. One score double. Here comes Green to the plate, and he is in. Wow. Scarborough Green takes walks off of the plate.
Scarborough Green, that's a great name for your immaculate grid. And also just a great feet first. He was just faster than the pitch on that one.
Well, full windup from the left-handed pitcher. And also, that's a Trey Turner slide.
Yeah.
How smooth was that? And then popping up and walking nonchalantly to the dugout as if it was no big thing.
I think my favorite part about that one is just how nonchalant Scarborough is after doing that. And yeah, this is another instance. Left-hander, wind up. We don't really get an angle to see when he exactly starts his sprint home, but man, what a moment right there.
Broadcasters have been on it so far too.
Halfway back to the infield.
Squeeze is on, and the butt was fouled off. It was a suicide squeeze. Dexter was breaking on the pitch.
I think McCann just whiffed on that.
Did he whiff on it? Because
Yeah.
Dexter's in the dugout. You're right. It's 4-0. I thought he bunted it foul.
I thought he did too, but then you watch the Chad Fairchild signal that did nothing happen. He scored.
That's a steal of home. Let's watch this thing again.
Okay, so that's one where very easy to be confused, Jesse, because your brain thinks squeeze, the ball rolls up the first base line. It's really easy. That's Drew Goodman on the call. And Jeff Hewson, who's the analyst, who's the first one to point out, wait a minute, I think he might be safe.
I can be really awful with a swing and a miss, and the ball gets through the catcher, and wait, there was no foul tip. Now that's a live ball because this is a drop third strike. You really do wait as time stands still, and you just need the umpire to call something. And in this situation, the umpire making no call is a call. So thank goodness that Drew's working with the analyst. That's right. That's why a two-person broadcast booth is clutch, because otherwise you as the audience are going, okay, fouled off a bunt.
Okay, so for this next one, this is really good because we have a third base camera.
Yeah.
That is starting to preview what is happening. We have a left-hander who is on the mound. We can see that the third baseman is playing back. The third baseman is not even in the camera view right here. So that is Jacoby Ellsbury, one of the fastest players in baseball at the time, who's taking his lead. And you can see that he's already got a pretty good lead. Looks like the left-hander is about to work from a windup. And we're about to see. Well, I think we know what's about to happen next.
Runner goes. Slide. Safe.
Nice.
He's still home. Ellsbury.
All right. So, of course, because it's modern baseball, hold on. We have to look at the replay. We have to determine if he was safe or out. It turns out he was safe. But I love this angle. And as you talk, Jesse, I'm going to rewind it here so we can look at this angle again frame by frame.
Michael K saying runner goes, slide, safe. How great is this? So you see Ellsbury edging his way down the line. Full windup from a left-handed pitcher with a runner there at third base. It's a recipe for danger on the baseball side. And on the broadcasting side, Michael K speaks just enough.
Yeah, by the way, I want to give a shout out to the compilation of this video. It was Savage Brick Sports who put this together. And so we're able to utilize the hard editing by Savage Brick Sports. So yeah, I want to go ahead and listen to this once again because we get the great angle right here. And I love the timing of Ellsbury so we can listen to Michael K's quick, efficient call.
Runner goes. Slide. Safe.
Nice.
He's still home.
Runner goes, slide, safe. He stole home. Perfect.
And you want that safe to be the second that the umpire signals safe, which is why Dick Enberg got mixed up earlier, because Enberg was calling safe because he knew that the runner was safe. And then he had to reverse himself because he saw the umpire call out, and now he's in trouble. And all Michael K is doing is, there's the slide, there's the safe call, he stole home.
Let's go on to the next one.
Ellsbury steals home the tie of the game.
And it's the squeeze, the suicide squeeze, and he scores. Dexter never did make contact.
Well, the ball was down and away from Ruiz, and he he knew that Dempster wasn't going to be able to get to it. He tried to pick it real quick, and he just couldn't get the handle of it.
There you go with that one, Jesse. Another one where it's a squeeze attempt and something goes awry. I think that is, at least for me, Jesse, if there is a squeeze play that is happening, I think it almost gives your brain another second and a half to process. Okay, something is happening here. Maybe even it's the batter turning around to bunt or something like that, and it starts to get you a little bit more prepared. Maybe your brain is even just thinking, okay, there's the possibility of a squeeze, although squeezes are becoming even more and more rare these days as well.
True. I think for us in communicating to the audience, just shouting squeeze, suicide squeeze, everybody understands what's happening. And then the play itself, it's a pitch that bounces in the dirt. The catcher's got no shot. It's very easy for the runner to swipe home plate. But I think that whole start of squeeze and then, all right, so he scores fairly easily. I think that when it comes to degree of difficulty, that's on the lower scale of degree of difficulty. And yet, I would still argue that this challenges the broadcaster to go 0 to 60. All right, here comes the pitch. Squeeze, and then you react.
Okay, so we already have the preview of what's going to happen next. We have Billy Hamilton, who we all know, one of the fastest people in baseball. And we even have this graphic that is already up on the screen that says National League leaders, Billy Hamilton, 25, D. Gordon, 20. So we know what's going to happen because of the name of this episode. But let's see exactly how this one happens.
Thrown out the most times trying to steal bases among all National Leaguers. There's ball forward low to Phillips, and here comes Hamilton, and he's going to score. Can you believe that?
Now, Carlos Ruiz is saying, hey, wasn't there timeout or something, or can't you do something about that? And Ryan Sandberg is going to have a conversation, I think, in the dugout with Larry Bowa, but Bowa is saying, Now here gets behind there.
I wish we had a second angle of that, but that, first of all, the fastest players are so much fun because you never know. And it just goes to show, Jesse, that any time that you throw a baseball to another base, that's 90 feet there, it's 90 feet back, plus the transfer, it almost becomes a math equation for guys like Billy Hamilton to realize once you let the ball go, I can run from third to home faster than you can throw from home to first and then back home.
I saw Hamilton do this so many times in the minor leagues. Whatever base he wanted to take, he just took it. And he took it whenever he felt like it. In this situation, all right, we've got Tom Brenneman saying, in comes Hamilton. Real simple, straight to the point. You know who was taken off guard the most was the umpire because Hamilton almost took out his feet.
The reason why we're going through these so fast is because they happen so fast. And so it's one of those times too, Jesse, that I know that for myself, I'm sitting here and, okay, so I'm keeping score. And strike three, it's really easy. Okay, I'm going to update my scorebook. I'm going to look down. Even if you just look down for a second or two, Jesse, you might totally miss what happens on a play like this. We talked about in the triple play episode about how you might have your cheat sheet, right? That's got all the names of all the infielders and the outfielders. And when you look down, you might miss something. And so this once again goes back to the importance of having everyone's name memorized so that you're not looking down. But then still sometimes, Jesse, you're just updating your scorebook. Okay, that's a strikeout. Let me write down K in my scorebook and get ready for the next batter. Here comes Billy Hamilton from third base.
Yes. Let me add to that the importance of keeping your head. If you remember when Manuel Margot tried to steal home in the World Series for the Rays against the Dodgers, and Clayton Kershaw kept his head and fired it in perfectly at a home plate, and he was out. The pitcher and the catcher keeping their head. It's the same thing for us in the broadcast booth because it's so easy to panic. And that's where I'm looking at the words that everyone is saying. In comes Hamilton, or this runner for the plate, or what can you say that gets to the point quickly enough to set it up? Because you need to get those words out before we say safe or out, before we see the result.
Okay, so we've looked at a number of different Major League Baseball plays. I want us to look at a few plays from college baseball because at the college baseball level, okay, now you have guys that are really skilled, but they're not quite as skilled as they are in the major leagues. That's why they're in college. And at the collegiate level, and I broadcasted a number of college baseball over the last few years, you have a lot more pitchers who are working from the windup when there's runners on base. And you also have just a lot more, we're not quite sure exactly where we go in certain plays, which leads to one of my favorite all-time steals of home.
Oh, let's go.
Did you get that?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I kind of lose it at that point. But
there's the Chatinier, the runner. He made it. He slid in successfully. And now he's going to try to take third because nobody's covering third. And Chatinier makes it in there safely as well. And now nobody's covering home. Can he do it? You bet he can. He slid into all three bases, second, third, and home. And when are you going to see that one, Keith Kessinger?
Never.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Triple steal.
Isn't that amazing? Stealing second, third, and home on the exact same play. Now, that's a case where, number one, the announcers are kind of yucking it up, right? You've got a runner at first base. There's a pickoff attempt. They're still kind of caught in whatever it is that they're talking about. That's going to happen. No one's perfect. Your mind's going to go. Conversation's going to go. I think that even though they were behind the action for the steal of second, I think they did a good job of immediately recognizing this moment and being able to pick up on what's going on for the steal of third and for the steal of home. I do think the lesson here is that even when you're in the middle of some story, the action on the field always comes first. So whatever it is that you're talking about, you need to be able to immediately stop and focus on the action that's on the field. They probably waited a little bit too long, but I do appreciate how once the base runner got to second, now all of a sudden their brains went, we got to pay attention here because we've got infielders all over the field and chaos is about to ensue.
Nobody's at the next base. They're all protecting the bases that have already been stolen. I do think that each subsequent steal, the call got better. When I first was hired as an intern in baseball, I was told by the person who hired me, he said, take this advice, never be surprised. And I haven't followed it because I'm constantly surprised in the baseball game, but I'm always thinking about this. How do you not be surprised on a broadcast while still conveying the appropriate level of whatever it is? Depending on the play, some plays you need to convey amazement. Some plays you need to convey enjoyment. And at the end, there's enjoyment with this call as this runner is belly flopping his way around safely without even being contested, save for second base. So I think there is that element of making sure that you're not surprised and right there, and then following and describing that action.
Two things about that, and this is more maybe advice for base runners just as much as it is advice for broadcasters. Number one, once again, the changing rules in baseball are going to make plays like that more difficult. Now, at the collegiate level, you can still do as much shifting as you want. If you want to put three infielders to one side of the diamond, you can do so. It doesn't happen all that often in college baseball, but it occasionally happens. At the major leagues, you're not allowed to do that anymore. It wasn't that long ago, Jesse, that you would put, say it's a big left-handed batter, three infielders on the right side of the infield. The third baseman plays the traditional shortstop position, which means the third baseman is covering second base on a steal, which means nobody is at third base. And so we started to see that where base runners would get to second, immediately see, oh, third base is unoccupied. And now it's a sprint between the catcher to third and the base runner from second to third, which is what happened on that. The other thing, Jesse, there's a couple of base runners for the Albuquerque Isotopes who started to do something last year. And let's say it's just a fairly routine force play out at second. Rather than slowing themselves down by sliding into second, they just sprinted as fast as they could from first to second and then just went on their way to third with the idea that if they're safe, the defense is not ready and I can get to second faster and I've got a better chance of being safe. And then I've already got my momentum going to third and catching the defense by surprise. Now, it didn't work last year. It was attempted twice. The first time the runner, I should say, was out at second. And then the second time there was just confusion and then he was eventually out. But it's kind of a smart play because of how much faster you can keep going when you don't slow yourself down with a slide.
I love that. That's fun. Put the defense on their heels, force them to keep their head about themselves, keep their wits about themselves. Let me look at this briefly from a broadcaster's perspective. Let's say there's a base that's unoccupied. It's upon us to describe who should be covering that bag, where the failure came, and to look around the infield and say, that's the pitcher's job. That's the catcher's job. Here's the person who needs to step in here. If there's someone who's been neglecting their duties, to understand those different responsibilities, especially when things don't go as planned.
And that's a really hard thing for a catcher to immediately recognize, because that's a long way for the catcher to run. And pitchers are usually not paying attention. They're just watching the ball sail over their head as they duck to get out of the way. And so, yeah, leaves that base unoccupied. But that's a really good piece of advice, is just always be thinking with the wide view. And this is where I think also, Jesse, a lot of times we've talked about the importance of looking at the monitor. And I think going back to the Jacoby Ellsbury straight steal of home with Michael Kay, it's a great angle that the director has set up. Michael Kay is watching that. He's able to nail the call. But then there's other times the camera is not showing something. And that's where I think that your eyes need to be on a swivel, a combination of looking at your monitor, also looking at the field and anticipating what might happen.
So there you can look at what could give you the idea that something might happen, right? So being aware of the runner's tendencies, the team, as you say, what the team likes to do, how aggressive is the team on the bases? What is the defense? What are their tendencies? Is this the sort of pitcher who might go full windup here? There are all those different things that your preparation puts you in position to understand. This is a spot where we could see some aggressive base running.
All right, so let's get to another one from college baseball. And we're going to look at it from two different angles, because this is a play where, well, I don't want to give away too much. Let's just watch what happens here. All right, Jesse. So before I press play on this, I want everyone to kind of take a look here. First, we've got a third baseman who is at the edge of the grass, and we've got a runner who is at third base who's taken a pretty good lead, but is not taking too big of a lead just yet. Now with this one, this was a video that was shot by some fan that's in the stands. Hopefully we don't get too dizzy because they don't keep the camera very still. And I'm going to turn off the volume of it so that we don't hear too much of the background noise. But we're going to start by just watching. The pitch comes home. Okay, so we have a swing and a miss. So there's now 2 strikes. So now we're going to watch the third baseman, and he's going to back up. So now that runner at third, maybe the third base coach just reminded him of something. He's able to take a bigger lead. He knows he's not about to get picked off. Meanwhile, the pitcher has this routine where he gets the sign. He's got it there. Here's the base runner going off. And watch what happens next. And that is Texas Tech defeating Texas on a stolen base. Now, I also want us to watch this from a different perspective as well. But you've got something to say, Jesse. Go ahead.
No, I really enjoyed the way that you took me through it, because you were holding my hand all the way through. It was great to have a guide. And I'm going, oh my God, there's no play to be made defensively.
Okay, so now let's look at this from a different perspective, because that's what the fans see on the first base side or on the third base side. Now let's look at this from the TV perspective and what you're seeing as a viewer. Okay, so once again, at this point, the pitcher has received the sign. We have seen from the other angle that the third baseman has backed up, and you've got a runner at third base. And this is what it looks like from the center field camera.
Left to right. He steals the bag. Wow. He steals home.
Kurt Wilson, while Nixon was on the mound looking down, had stolen home to win the ball game. Nixon never looked up and never even delivered the ball to Ardoin at home plate. How about that by Kurt Wilson?
Well, Nixon, as he
Number one, it's just really smart base running. And again, I think that goes back to what I think about for my cues for something like this, Jesse. Number one, look at the third baseman. I never forget. I learned this from Steve Lyons when I worked with Steve Lyons on Dodger Talk. When you're the base runner at third, you can get as big of a lead as the third baseman is away from the bag. If the third baseman is coming in, anticipating a bunt, you can go step by step with him down the third base line. If the third baseman is away from the line, especially if it's a big shift, you can get further and further because then it just becomes a race back to the bag in case of a pickoff attempt. So number one, look at the third baseman. That tells you how big of a lead the runner at third base can get. Number two, left-handed pitcher or right-handed pitcher. As we saw earlier with Gary LeFevre, left-handed pitcher, back to third base, can't quite see. The next thing is the pitcher working from a windup? If the pitcher is working from a windup, he is going to be way, way slower. And then the next thing is, does the pitcher have a habit after getting the sign of
clear the mechanism,
right? And if the pitcher does that, then that is a prime moment where someone has a chance to steal home.
Is the pitcher counting the seams on the baseball, staring intently into his glove, memorizing the Constitution? I love that. I love that. And I would add to it a couple of things. The first thing is that unlike the pitcher, we have to have a wider scope. And in this case, the pitcher has narrowed his scope and he's gone, the batter matters. Nobody else matters. Blinders are on. Peripheral vision is unnecessary here when I could lose by a run and the game-winning run is at third base. You are the only guy that matters. Our scope has to be wide. We have to see the full field. And if you're watching the monitor, you don't see the full field because the monitor shows you what the camera shows you. So you have to have that full field of vision in front of you. The second thing that I think of is, remember, Josh, you were talking about all the different ways that the rule changes have hurt exciting plays such as this. And I would argue that this could help it. And here's why I'd argue that. When the third baseman plays back and that runner from third starts to take a bigger and bigger and bigger lead, what is the pitcher taught to do? From what I've learned is step off the rubber. Just step off and get that guy back to the bag. Well, now you're only allowed a limited number of step-offs. And that changes the situation of the game.
So there's a couple of things from a fundamental standpoint that you may not say as a broadcaster, but I think it's just really good. Now, sometimes when you're describing the action, you might say, the pitcher comes set, he checks the runner at second base, he delivers home. We don't always have to say that, but you can be thinking, okay, what is this pitcher doing? Is he looking back the runner at second a couple of times? Is he staring at the runner at third? Is he peeking over his shoulder at the runner at first base? If you're mentally thinking about that, then it helps you understand, is this pitcher susceptible to getting a stolen base off him, regardless of whether it's first or second or third or whatever the case might be? Is the pitcher not paying attention to the base runner? Does he have some type of routine that he needs to do that makes him susceptible for having somebody steal any base off him, especially home?
We have stats we can look at to see how effective is the pitcher at holding on runners. And you can see, oh, looks like they're highly successful against him. Why? Oh, looks like he holds on runners great. Why? And that all leads into the game prep, the questions that you can ask in advance before the game. That leads into your call of it to understand, is the pitcher cognizant or are they entirely unaware?
Okay, so we've been pretty harsh on pitchers and catchers. So far, everybody has been safe, but we want to make sure that we share the love here, Jesse. And so let's close by looking at a couple of examples of somebody who is out, or were they out?
Must see.
That big pitch coming here, 1-2.
Called strike three by Mark Chapman. Coming home and again and home. What a heads-up play by...
Okay, so that was Trey Turner when he was in college. That's a terrible place for me to pause the action. That's Trey Turner when he was in college at NC State. You have strike three for one out. Turner is trying to sprint home from third. Smart idea if you're safe, but he is out at home, Jesse. And I'm just going to rewind this so that we can look at this a second time because it just happened so fast. Indeed, must see.
That big pitch coming here, 1-2.
Called strike three by Mark Chapman. Here it is, Nick.
He's going to do it on the throwback.
Awfully close.
Okay, I'm going to rewind this again one more time because we think about, are you in position? It's really hard for an umpire to be in position. And so when we look at the replay, watch the umpire after he says strike three, right? He has his call. He's not paying attention. And now here he is.
Awfully close.
So it just goes to show how things can happen. And a lot of people are not ready, right? There's the emphatic strike three. Oh, wait, something's happening, Jesse.
You didn't think that crafting the call would all be about the umpire's call, did you? But welcome to the show. Trey Turner, the umpire turns. The umpire turns his shoulders back to the play. He's out of position. Turner's safe. He calls him out. The broadcasting crew is a little late. They catch on, and I think they catch up fairly well. But this is a prime example of how this play, the stolen base attempt of home, happens just like that.
And let's be honest. Again, we mentioned at the start, neither one of us have ever had a straight steal of home. We've only had first and third. So this is something where you can tell yourself, I'm not going to get into that trap. I'm going to pay attention. But now it's been 150 games, Jesse. And now it's been another 150 games. And now I don't even know how many games that I've called, but I know that it's over 1,000. And so it's really easy to just look down, to look up, to look around, to do something else. And all of a sudden you miss something. And when it comes back to the keys of calling this, I think it really does come down to just knowing the personnel on the field. Now, in the case of Glenn Brummer, third string catcher, really easy to be surprised by that. But Trey Turner, one of the fastest human beings alive, I think you just always need to be ready for anything that Trey Turner might do, anything that Billy Hamilton might do, because it should be all eyes on them when they are on the bases.
Here's what I want to challenge you as a broadcaster, especially in my younger days, but I would argue still now that I'm working on. In exciting moments, there is the potential for me to sprain my tongue because I get so wrapped up in the greatness of it, about something that is so thrilling that I'm ready to hit it. Foot goes to the accelerator and I can trip over my words. I can stumble ahead and start talking before I'm ready to. This is the sort of play that if you talk before you're ready, you will fall flat on your face. And so we have seen broadcasters who, whether they weren't ready or whether they waited to talk until they were ready, their brain and their mouth was together, that is a challenge in of itself. And so if you can keep your head and your wits about you, if you can say, all right, runner breaks, hit it, call it, that's the key, to pair the excitement with somehow making sure that you don't get ahead of your skis.
I think that's really good advice. And here's the other thing. I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing the color commentator, because your brain as the analyst is strike three. The play-by-play announcer just called that. Now it's my turn to offer something up here about what's happened. Meanwhile, as the analyst goes into analyzing the strikeout, now here comes the action. And that's where the analyst and play-by-play announcer just really have to work together and figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? And more cases than not, this is the play-by-play announcer just has to interrupt him. Just shut up. Here I go to describe what's happening here. The other thing, Jesse, to your point, no, go ahead.
I mean, have you had that conversation with a color commentator in any sport, basketball, football, where you say, if you're talking and something happens that I need to jump in, you just got to step aside?
Yeah, I think that's important to do. And that's what comes with just your chemistry and working together. And I think that comes with just hanging out together, having dinners, having lunches and things like that, and understanding. The other thing I was going to say, Jesse, is that these moments of, I'm going to pause a beat, a half second, and it feels like it's an eternity. We talked about this with the triple play calls and that little pause to make sure you don't trip over your words. Really easy for us to say right now. In the heat of the moment, you're right. It's really easy to step on the gas. I think it's also really easy to see something happening and you look down to your scorebook to make sure that you have the name right, and now you've missed it as well. And I think that those are moments where if you don't have the runner's name at third base at the tip of your tongue, just say, here comes the runner, or here he comes. He's going to try, something like that to let the audience knows we've got more action coming. I think it's more important to just say that something's about to happen than to 100% get the name, unless that name, Billy Hamilton, here comes Hamilton, is right at the tip of your tongue.
I completely agree, because I think it's imperative for us to say something to let the listener know, the watcher know, that there's a runner coming for home plate.
All right, let's close things out by watching one more highlight where we can make fun of umpires.
With all due respect, we're going to get ejected.
Lonnie Smith, the third, 2 out.
The official word on Lonnie Smith, he jammed the ring finger on his left hand with that slide at second base.
Here he comes! And they get him! A daring play is...
All right, so I'm going to pause it here because I think we had 3 different people all say, here he comes at the same time. This is Dick Enberg, Tony Kubek, and Joe Garagiola. This is Game 6 of the 1982 World Series. The Cardinals are trailing 3-2 to the Brewers. They're back home in St. Louis. This is early in the game. And you had 3 different announcers all say, here he comes. And the other interesting part is we just had one of the analysts say that he injured his hand stealing second. And now Lonnie Smith tries to steal home on a straight steal of home.
Poor Lonnie Smith. Base running, man. Base running in the World Series.
Okay, but let's watch what happens next.
Lonnie Smith attempts to steal home, and it took a perfect throw by Sutton to nail him. Oh, my.
Oh, my. It's Dick Enberg.
Sutton sensed that. He might have been looking out of the corner of an eye after.
This is Tony Kubek.
He didn't really rush his delivery to create a balk, but he threw the ball inside part of the plate where Simmons could just slap the tag and move that glove about 1.5 feet. Watch, he sets up outside, and Sutton, sensing it, throws the ball inside, seeing him coming. Only a veteran pitcher could have done that.
It's a dangerous tag by Simmons with one hand, but coming in head first.
Oh,
and
he's
I
safe.
don't know.
He is safe.
He looked to be in
safe.
there.
He is safe.
He is safe. He is safe. He is safe.
Hey, credit the camera angles and credit the broadcasters for seeing it and going, whoa. Only a veteran pitcher could have let him steal home like that.
By the way, Lonnie Smith was called out. That replay just showed that he was safe. The Cardinals still won that game. They also won Game 7 of the 1982 World Series. I thought that was actually a really good example of a 3-man booth working well, because Enberg describes it, Tony Kubek then describes what the pitcher is doing, and then Joe Garagiola, the former catcher, then describes about Simmons and what Ted Simmons was doing, which leads me to my last point, Jesse, about catcher, something I didn't know before researching this episode. As the catcher, you must stay behind the plate until the pitch is delivered. You cannot jump in front of the batter. You cannot jump in front of the plate. So you have to make sure that you receive the ball and then lean forward, which is something that I didn't know. I thought that maybe you could kind of jump it. Now, that'd be very dangerous to try to jump it because the batter can still swing. So that's where it goes back to the danger of the moment as the catcher. You might get hurt as the catcher. The base runner might get injured because maybe his teammate swings. Maybe the ball hits him if he is arriving at the same time. There's a lot of different things that can happen, but via the rule book, the catcher must receive the ball first, and then he can reach forward for the tag.
Unless the pitcher steps off the rubber first, right?
Yes, that's a good point too, because at that point, then a pitch is no longer coming. But once it has left the pitcher's hand, then he must wait and must be behind the plate.
The catcher's got to stay back. The pitcher has to, if they understand, step off the rubber a la Clayton Kershaw. The runner has to understand. The batter has to understand. I would also argue, how difficult is this for the home plate umpire to make this call? Because you are blocked by 1, maybe 2 people, right? You're trying to look around the catcher to see if that tag got there before the hand came in.
And when we go back to Jackie Robinson, look at where the umpire is as I get out of the way. There is no way that he can see it, Jesse. Look at that. He cannot see it. He is blocked completely. He is guessing if Jackie is safe or out.
Yeah, no chance. No chance. It's not an umpire turning his back to the play a la Trey Turner, but there's no chance that you've got any kind of angle there.
All right. Final thoughts here, Jesse, about stealing home.
I think that we're ending at a really good spot, which is it's hard. It's hard for the umpire. It's hard for the catcher. It's hard for the pitcher. It's hard for the batter. For the runner, you better choose your spot right. If you do, you look great. If you don't, we didn't look at any where the runner's at by a mile. So for all of us, this is something where you've got to keep your head. You've got to keep your head, to use the cliche, in the game.
My final thought is base runners, try this more often. I don't care if you're safe or you're out. I just want to describe these things. They are super fun. I know they are dangerous. It's very easy for me to say this from the safety of the press box. Runners at third, try stealing home. It's super fun and exciting.
They're looking up to the broadcast booth and you've got a traffic light and it's always green.
All right, this has been Crafting the Call. For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, I'm Josh Suchon. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again next week.